Hello, I'm Dr. Papia Bhattacharjee. In this problem, we have to evaluate limits, two different limits of the function. Let me write it down. So we have to evaluate limit of the function, and the function is absolute value x plus 3 over x plus 3. This is the function, and we have to evaluate the limit. It's a one-sided limit as x is approaching to negative 3 from negative 3 minus, which means x is approaching to negative 3 from left side. And we also have to evaluate the right hand side limit, that is x approaching negative 3 plus of the same function. And we need to use the graph of the function to evaluate the limit. So the very first thing we should do is try to graph the function, and then using the graph, see if we can say what the limits are going to be, the left hand and the right hand. So here is our function. The function is absolute x plus 3 over x plus 3. So if you notice carefully, the very first thing you should note that since we have the factor x plus 3 in the denominator, that factor can be 0, and it will be 0 when x is equal to negative 3. So that is the point. So if you come back here, so here, let's see, negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. The graph does not, there is no, the function don't have a value for x equals negative 3. That should be pretty clear. So what about the other values? So that point is not in the domain of the function as we say it. Now this is an absolute value. You know, the absolute value gives you either plus or a minus, a positive or a negative factor depending on what is inside of it. So let me rewrite this function this way. The absolute value of x plus 3 will be a positive x plus 3, and we are dividing this x plus 3. This will be the case when the numerator is greater than 0, because then it's already a positive value, and the absolute of a positive is a positive. But if the case is such that we have a negative value inside the absolute value, so this whole expression is negative, then the absolute of a negative is still a positive. How do you get that positive? You take the negative of x plus 3 over x plus 3. So that's how absolute value function works. Now notice these two factors are same. It is x plus 3 and x plus 3, both numerator and denominator. So you can simplify it a little bit more, and then your function is actually turning out to be 1 when x is, so x plus 3 greater than 0 happens when x is greater than negative 3. And here it will be negative 1 when x is less than negative 3. So that's the function. Okay, so let's graph it. So here is our negative 3. So on the right hand side of negative 3, when x is greater, then the value of the function is 1. Okay, remember at negative 3 there is no value. So we put a open circle, and then it's going to be a straight line through 1. On the left side of negative 3, so for x on the left, the value of the function is negative 1. Again, we don't have any value at negative 3, so put an open circle and then a straight line at negative 1. So that is our function f. Now, once we have the function, once we have the graph, let's try to evaluate the limit. So the first limit is when x is approaching negative 3, minus means from the left hand side. So let me remind you one more time what that means. That means that x is approaching to this value, minus 3, from left side. So it's taking values to the left side of negative 3 and approaching it. So we have to look at where is the function approaching to. The function is approaching to this point, and the y value of that point is negative 1. So that is the limit, the left-hand limit. All right, what about the right hand limit? So now we have to figure out x is approaching to negative 3 from right hand side. Plus means right hand side. That means x is going along the x-axis. So x is taking values close to negative 3 from the right hand side. Let's look at the graph. Where is the function approaching to? It's approaching to this value. And what is that value? What is the y of that value? It's 1. Therefore, the right hand limit is 1. So that's how we calculate the left hand and the right hand limit. Now, let me just point out one fact. For this particular function, for this particular limit, the actual limit as x approaching to negative 3 does not exist, because for that limit to exist, both left hand and the right hand limit should be equal to each other. Since they are not, therefore, limit as x approaches negative 3 for this function, absolute x plus 3 over x plus 3, actually does not exist. Thank you.